What's going on, guys? It's Ben back here. I wanted to do a quick little video about how much money you can make in recruiting. So I run my own staffing agency. I've told you that in pretty much every single video that I've made so far, which is 3. This is number 3. So how much money do you make in recruiting? I run my own staffing company, and why do I do it? Like, what is the payout? What's in it for me, rather than starting like an FBA store, doing Shopify or something like that. So I don't want to be braggadocious. I don't want to be like too flashy or whatever, but the first client I ever had in recruiting paid me $30,000. And it basically took me about 2 weeks of work to land the client and close the whole deal and get the check. That was a one-off. I'm not saying everybody can get $30,000 in 2 weeks, every single time you go on a recruiting gig, but this one just worked out that way. So the simple answer is it's pretty much up to you. It depends on what kind of clients you get, what type of need that they have, what kind of volume that they need. I came across a delivery service that actually wanted drivers, box truck drivers. They delivered different items, and basically it's just a courier type service. So they needed deliveries going like ASAP because they were a startup, and they needed about 15 drivers. So what I did is got to work right away. I actually found out they were hiring. I found them online. I cold emailed the HR director, connected with her, and she's like, "I'm so glad you called because we really need drivers right now." And so I'm like, "Great, I'll find you drivers." And so being an entrepreneur, you go around and you find ways to do that. So you start putting up your ads, you start sourcing people, you use Craigslist, you use Indeed, you use whatever tools that you use, and I'll go into those in later videos on how you actually finalize these things. But bottom line is it took me about 2 weeks fielding phone calls, emails, back and forths, resume checks, different things like that to actually land about 15 drivers. And the fee that I was charging at the time was 10%, which is actually bare bones as far as staffing goes. Normally people are paying 15 to 20% on fees. But basically what that means is 10% of the gross salary that the person is going to make is a fee that goes to me. So these people were going to make about 18 bucks an hour. It equated out to about 30 grand a year. 10% of 30 grand is about 3,000 bucks. Actually made about $37,000 on the whole deal when I think about it back now. So that took me about 2 weeks total, probably about 10 hours of actual work, 2 weeks of total time. And that was my aha, like fire, like let's go moment, because I just realized I basically made half of what I used to make at my salary at my old job, and I was just like, I'm over it, I'm done. So that was my first deal, and that's a little bit of the taste of what you can do in staffing. It just depends, again, on clientele, how many candidates they need, how fast they need them, and what they're willing to pay. So you can do a volume game where you work on, hiring lots and lots and lots of employees for clients. Like maybe you're working on something where they need 20 warehouse people, and you're going to take 10% of their gross annual earnings. Or maybe you can work on headhunting, where you're going to look for one high-level position like a software engineer, which is a different domain of recruiting. I mean, we can talk all about that in later videos, but those fees are 20% on like $150,000 salary. So that's a $22,000 fee that you would get. And if you did one of those a month, you'd be good. But maybe you like playing the volume game and working with easier clients that are more blue collar, like the delivery driver deal. So my first deal was about 37 grand. Deals I got right after that were pretty simple. Some admins, some secretaries, a couple of like technicians for contract companies. So those were like, simple placements that were maybe people making 50,000 a year. It took 10%, 5,000 here, 5,000 there. It all depends on kind of the effort you put in to get the clients that you actually want to pay. you. So, you know, if you're really, really going after it, and you're really landing big clients that need big numbers of employees and they're willing to pay 15, 20%, it really depends on the scalability of your effort on that node. Other than that, you know, luck doesn't really have a place here. This is all about you and your effort and how many cold emails or cold calls you want to make, how many networking connections you want to make. Your network is ultimately your net worth. I mean, whoever can introduce you to the next person that's going to introduce you to the next person that's going to get you the deal is ultimately how it's going to play out. So I found an ad where someone was hiring. I contacted the person. I took initiative, which is huge. If you're not taking action and initiative, you shouldn't even be watching the video. You shouldn't even be caring at all, because if you're not going to take any action, there's no purpose in even thinking about it. You have to like immediately act on things to get the ball rolling in recruiting and staffing, because you have to get a conversation started and you have to close a deal. So none of this took me any real effort. You know, like I said, first deal, 37 grand, 2 weeks. Basically from inception to close, it was literally just a bunch of phone calls and emails saying, hey, do you have a driver's license? Do you have a clean driving record? Are you able to work from these hours to these hours? Do you want an interview at this time? Yes or no? Okay, pass, 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 pass. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks, 15 people are hired, $37,000 check comes to my mail. So pretty straightforward, right? That's not every single month, right? That's not going to be a client that you get every month, every week, or whatever. You might get something close to that though. You might get another client that needs 3 people that pays out $5 grand on each candidate, because the candidate's going to make $50,000 and you might make $15,000 for the month. You might get something double that. You might get something that was huge and maybe you need, you know, 20 people and they're all worth $5 grand. I mean, like, you know, ultimately it really just depends on kind of how much effort you want to put into staffing, how much time do you want to devote to cold email reach out, cold phone calls, and networking. That's the true crux of recruiting and any sales or entrepreneurship venture that you go out on. It's really just dependent upon how much effort you want to put into the whole game. And so that's what I do. I hit the phones, I hit the email at 5 a.m. pretty much every single day. I go after it, and then, you know, I take time off whenever I want to take time off. I mean, when I get the job done, I get the job done, but I respond to emails pretty much whenever I have to. But, you know, I turn my phone off whenever I want to, pretty much, because once I get things done, I get things done. But how much money can you make in staffing? The sky's not even the limit. Basically just dependent upon how much time do you have and how much effort you want to put in. So that's just a little tidbit on kind of how I made my first deal, what really got my fire started for starting my own recruiting agency, and you know, getting it all set up and getting me kind of in a position where I could have the confidence to kind of go after a ton of new clients and just land them like cake over and over after, you know, landing such a big client and closing that out. I was really, really confident. And I think sometimes it takes hearing someone else's story like that to be able to think, you know, oh, you know, wow, he landed that, he made that amount of money, it took that amount of time. I could do that, like, you know what I mean? So sometimes it just takes hearing someone else's story, understanding what they did, how they did it, and then, you know, replicating, rinse and repeat. I mean, I'm not doing anything that anybody else can't do, is what I'm trying to say. So ultimately, the sky's not even the limit for you guys. Starting your own staffing agency is super lucrative. I would absolutely recommend that you kind of continue to watch this channel, check it out. I'm going to be coming out with a lot more content about how to work these deals, how to set up your staffing agency, how to get into recruiting, even casually 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week. I mean, even maybe just one client, just getting your first client and how to work it and how to close a deal to make like a $4,000 check on a client, something like that. So I'm going to go over videos like that here in the future, but I just wanted to give you a little snapshot of my first deal and how much money is possible to be made in staffing. That's like the tip of the iceberg. We're not even talking about tech staffing. We're just talking about generic recruiting, you know, for random things right now. And that was my first deal. So I just want to let you guys know and stay tuned, and hope to talk to you soon. Later.